Yeah, this is the only station.
88.5 WQOX, your Tennessee Radio Hall of Fame radio station. Brother John is very excited tonight for this tea time with Superintendent Toni Williams because we got some folks in the house, ladies and I'm talking about we got some men, like some real strong men in the building that's been advocating. I wonder if we combined the years. How many years would that be? Too many years. It's too many years. Right. Yeah. So joining Superintendent and myself tonight is board member Keith Williams.
All right.
And the principal, as they say, of the only University of Whitehaven High School in America, Dr. Vincent Hunter is in the building. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the show.
Welcome, Brother John.
Thank you.
Tommy, how you pull this off? Because
listen, let me say,
two like stunners.
So I know, right? So you got to be from the city to understand the city. I'll start there. But when you said how many years between both of them, I have to tell you the story about one man that is here today.
Okay.
Dr. Vincent Hunter.
Okay.
We used to know him as Coach Hunter.
Coach Hunter.
Yes, and
that's how you met him, Coach
Hunter.
Okay.
So he was my geometry teacher. That's how long we go back. And I have to tell you this joke. I'm so happy that, listen, in the hierarchy, I'm a little higher than him because I have to pay him back for all the bad grades that he gave me in geometry. Yes.
That's an educator
so
right
listen,
there.
Listen, this man here is highly respected. Someone definitely, he's going to call you out. He's going to tell you like it is. But guess what? He has a heart for children, heart for the Whitehaven community. And this is one principle that I would say, when you walk in his school, he owns it. He owns the parents, he owns the community, he owns the students, and it's a spirit in Whitehaven. He's one of the principals that I love the county scholarships at the end of the year to just understand where our kids are going. And I'm just saying it is a community of hope. And definitely with Dr. Hunter's leadership, I'm just extremely proud to just know the man.
Right.
And grow up seeing him, you know?
Right.
So, and then, listen, you asked me how I pulled this off. Mr. Williams, this is one board member that I will tell you, he tell it like it is.
Oh, for sure.
And listen, as our students say, he stands on business.
He stands on business.
He stands on business.
Yes.
So definitely, I welcome them to Tea with Toni. So we're going to have some live conversation and engagement about what happened in the Infrastructure Committee for District 6, the Whitehaven and Westwood community.
And this was the first meeting.
This was the first meeting. They kicked it off.
All right, so let's jump
kicked
right in.
Kicked it off hard. So why don't I go through who's on the subcommittee, right?
All right.
So Mr. Williams came up with a comprehensive list of individuals. So Mr. Williams, Mary Sinclair.
Mary Ann Hiller Sinclair is one of them, yes. She's a retired educator, many years in the district. Very good. She has a very promising and a very fruitful ACT preparation program that she's done for the past 10 to 15 years.
Okay.
And she's had great results in the Whitehaven area.
Okay, so let me remember one face that may not be listed here. You called her the mayor. The mayor? I thought we had two mayors.
Yeah, two mayors.
I did learn that we got another mayor.
We have a mayor of Whitehaven.
A mayor of Whitehaven.
Mayor of Whitehaven.
Miss
Hazel Moore.
Hazel Moore.
She is an Orange Mound native and a Melrose girl, but she loves Whitehaven.
Yeah.
She has a business there, and she has this annual parade at Christmas. And it's one of the largest. Yes, one of the largest in the city. But Hazel Moore is on about her business,
and then
she is bound and determined to save Whitehaven.
All right.
Then you got Eddie Jones.
Eddie Jones,
and then
commissioner.
Mr. Reuben Campbell. This was one that you recommended. Reuben Campbell.
Take that mic, bro. Go ahead and grab that mic.
Yes, Reuben Campbell is a mainstay in the Walker Homes community.
Okay.
I remember as a young boy, his family had a barbershop called King's Barbershop many years ago in the 70s. And Reuben Campbell is a business owner in the area. He has some daycares. He's also an official in athletics. He's been doing that many years. His children graduated from Whitehaven High School. So Reuben Campbell is a mainstay, not only in Whitehaven, but his origin is Walker Homes. And he'll let you know that very clearly. Okay. He's a Walker Homes guy, and He's the face of Walker Homes, and he's very diligent in his work and commitment to that community.
That's right.
All right.
Then Pastor Melvin Watkins.
Melvin Watkins. He's the voice of Mount Vernon, which is in the Westwood community.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
He took the reins from Dr. Netters after Dr. Netters passed, and we all know how much the 38109 and 38116 zip codes mean to Pastor Watkins and the Westwood community.
Right.
I just think now is the time that we all bring those communities together
Right.
and do the best that we can for our children.
And one more name, Mr. Williams. You said this lady is heavily invested as your neighbor, and she'll knock on your door to tell you
Yes,
about
all time of day
about
or
the,
night.
Yes, and this is Miss Beverly Davis.
Beverly Davis is 2 doors up from me. She has this tree that produces all the leaves. And I
All
tell you,
the
you need
leaves,
to get
yeah.
everybody's leaves up,
Everybody,
Beverly. But she's a good person, and she's a hard worker. And
Gotcha.
she's been on the Whitehaven Empowerment Zone for a long time. She had children to attend Whitehaven, but Beverly has time, and she uses it for the good of the community.
All right. And so other invitees have been Commissioner Edmund Ford, Jr. and Senior, and so they represent that particular community as well. And you have principals Jacqueline Brown Lewis, who is the principal of Doubletree Elementary, Darla Young, who's the principal of Havenview Middle, and then you have just in attendance other principals like Miss Shannon from Holmes Road, and then Dr. Trent Watson from Westwood. So you have the
Y'all
representation.
got some representation
Yeah,
for
but
real,
listen,
like some real players at the table.
There you go. There you go.
Because what's good for Whitehaven is good for all schools in the area.
Uh-oh.
So we call it all the greater Whitehaven, or Whitehaven High School, Westwood High School, Hillcrest High School. All of those schools make up that area. And what's good for one is good for all of them. And we want to replicate the good.
And I'm glad you said Hillcrest because Fairleigh High School.
Fairleigh is-
Fairleigh,
Fairleigh is out in Whitehaven, and Fairleigh is actually coming back to Memphis Shelby County Schools next year.
Wow, Dr.
So-
Hunter, how does that feel, man? You hearing all these schools, you know, in surrounding your high school, but it seemed like we all, like you said, we all can be on one accord or all come together. What's good for one is good for all. How does that make you feel? Because I'm sure you get kids from all over Whitehaven that used to go to some of these other schools.
Well, I just think now, because of the timing, this is now time for us to all come together. We've got to start working in silos.
Yes, sir.
We've got to bring our best practices and bring them up, regardless whether you're from Hillcrest, Fairleigh, Mitchell, Westwood. I think we've got to take our best practices and implement them throughout our community, because we know what's our Achilles heel now: crime.
That's right.
Crime, especially with our young people, and what we've done in the past, we can't continue to do. We've got to do things better in a different way. So now, hearing those schools coming back is an opportunity for us to galvanize all our resources, opportunities, and best practices, and make 38109 and 38116 back a mecca like it's always been in the past.
And I will add to that. If we don't save ourselves, who will save us?
Come on.
We cannot depend upon the governor and the state of Tennessee to save Whitehaven, because we know the plan, and the plan might not be what we want it to be, but we do know that we can get growth and achievement out of children. We may not be able to get what the governor has put in there now, and I just have something about me to believe that there may be some kind of front to overtake some of our schools, and we cannot stand for that. We have to save ourselves.
Right.
And we're going to have to do it in a way that is academically sound, that produces results, and that give the students, the children, the opportunity to be proud of where they live, work, go to school, and act. And if they take that, then their behavior naturally changes.
That's
Yes,
right.
sir.
It does not
Yes,
become
sir.
one of criminality, but one of structure
Gotcha.
and wealth and earning.
So with all these peoples and everybody coming together, the subcommittee, what's the objective of this subcommittee? Because it sounds good. You know how you
It
got
sounds
players in
promising.
different ones.
Yeah.
You got the voice. You got the mayor, Whitehaven, all these folks at the table.
Yeah.
But what we doing? What's the objective of all this?
Very, very well taken point. So why pull everyone together if we don't understand the objective and the goal? So first, when we had our last discussion around infrastructure, we talked about hope for a community. Hope for Memphis as a community, and definitely breaking off into 9 subcommittees. So the Whitehaven subcommittee, we're bringing everybody together to, one, understand the challenges in the Whitehaven community. And I do believe it starts with data.
Right.
And, the great man over here, Dr. Hunter, started us off with, what is the goal? What do we want to see? He started out with data in that committee with chronic absenteeism. Why don't I just get you to talk about what you
go ahead,
presented?
man. Come on, man. You broke it down. Talk to the people.
Yeah, he started at, but listen, I'll tell you the goal, but he far exceeded my expectations, which was essentially to look at data, but to come out and understand asset mapping and needs for the community, and what does that look like in our academic programming, along with the school buildings. So, Dr. Hunter, tell us how you started us off in this infrastructure committee.
Well, the first thing is that, of course, I look at data. And one of the first things you do when you consider data, you got to think about what generates funding. And what generates funding is attendance and enrollment. Right now, in our 38109 and 38116 zip codes, we have the capacity to house about 15,000 children. But we only are housing or educating about 11,000. So you do the math. So that's about 4,000. So you take 4,000 and you multiply it times 10,000 a head. That's $40 million that we're losing annually.
Annually.
So I've been tracking this since 2016. You take $40 million for the last 7 years, you're talking about we've lost approximately $280 million in funding. So if that doesn't get your attention, nothing will. You over $250 million in funding that we've lost.
And that was through the BEP or
That's
TISA, either one of them.
exactly, TISA or BEP. You're exactly right, Mr. Williams. So $40 million annually we're losing. So what has happened now is that the governor's already released the educational scholarship. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Okay.
Parents have choices now. Okay, they have choices.
We'll break it down about the educational, because we got different names for them. So you break them down.
So this is about the opportunity that parents have an opportunity to choose what school that they want their children to go, and funding follows those children.
There you go. And the name
Funding.
is
Funding.
vouchers.
Yeah, they call it
Funding follows the student.
That's right.
Exactly.
Okay.
Even to a private school.
Even to a private school. Okay.
So if that's the case, it's going to be 95 counties across the state of Tennessee that will have access to these vouchers. So what does that mean? That means parents have choices. So we've got to bow our back, stop crying about it. Now we have to create an environment where we want our children and convince parents to have children attend school with us. Because parents have choices now.
Right.
So now we've got to create curriculum. We've got to create an infrastructure, have housing where children can come and want to be a part of. You want a school that parents will say, hey, I want my child to attend this school. So what are the hooks? We're losing so many of our children to the private sector. Why is that? Because their infrastructure, their buildings are much better equipped for the 21st century. And we're going to have to get our buildings equipped with 21st century labs, educators, and we've got to cultivate a culture where parents believe in us again.
And to that point, I believe that in Whitehaven, if it can happen anywhere in Shelby County for our students, it would be Whitehaven. Because in that community, you still have the largest segment of African American people who are wage earners, who are professional people, who are homeowners, and it's not that it's pervasive. And many of us have been there. I've been there 40 years. Don't plan to go anywhere.
Right.
Some people moved on up in the world, but we have those spots and places in the community, and it is up to us to save that community and the children in it.
Right.
Because even with the new CA that they just got there are things there that shared with the school, our career technology structure that is coming up. All of those things, we can speak to them.
Right.
But Whitehaven High School prides itself in academia. They have the 32-year club, the ACT, all of those things that happen there. And that could be replicated across that district. And I do not want anyone to get the notion that we're trying to save Whitehaven High. We're trying to save Whitehaven, Westwood, Fairleigh, Hillcrest,
right.
all
The
of
whole
them.
cluster.
That's right.
The
Everything
cluster.
in Whitehaven. But because if we either stand together, we'll fall separately. So we need to do that. That's what our aim is.
And how you've been around and you've seen education through the years, but like Doc just said, like this is an opportunity for us to galvanize the community to get our children in Whitehaven. But like he said, you need teachers. Soup was here, been talking every show. She's been talking about infrastructure. She could be talking about other things, but it seems like, Keith, that this infrastructure is very important to education. And you've seen it through the years. Why do you think it's so important to this community now?
Because if you don't get it at school, where are you going to get it? If we don't have, we can do all we can for the community, all we can for families. I started my career in Northside High School back in the 70s. It was a state-of-the-art building.
State-of-the-art.
Very well built, every vocation you had, and the children came, and you can address culture that way. We can show them a better way in life. You can make your money doing this or doing this, but you got to come to school, you have to obey, you got to follow the rules, and it served its purpose for many, many years. We're looking for the same kind of thing now. Our children should not have to go 100 miles away to get a quality education. We have it in Whitehaven, and we're going to make sure that Hillcrest, Whitehaven, Westwood, those
Fairly,
things,
all of
Fairly,
them.
that they perform, and we get the
Chickasaw,
best out of the children that we have.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, Soup. So what's some of the ideas, concerns, or feedback that came out of the
Let
subcommittee?
me tell you, Whitehaven is a passionate community. So you definitely, and I love it. I love the pushback. I love the challenge and to make us better as a community. And so some of the things that I heard from community members, or I'll start with principals first, right? Just really our internal processes, but externally, how can we make schools look better and more prepared for post-secondary readiness? I'll give you an example around, and I'll use maybe Mr. Eddie Jones as he's a friend of the community, so he doesn't mind. Former commissioner, and
Right.
I guess he's the probate clerk now.
Okay.
So he used an example of his daughter that particularly when she went off to Rose College and is still doing well in Rose College, but she struggled in the beginning because of the labs, right? She didn't have the same access in our school districts for when she got prepared to go to Rose. And so that's some of the kind of the concerns around community members. How do we prepare our students to make sure that wherever they go, they're globally prepared? And so one thing about Whitehaven, I will say in this particular community, you got advocates, right? You got advocates that's sitting here, but you have strong community members that have even, as of recently, received the final funding of around $1.5 million for the Whitehaven STEM,
Yes,
right?
yes,
I mean,
yes,
that
yes.
is something
That's big.
that's huge, right, for the
right.
Whitehaven community. But what does that look like across the district when we all have the heart and soul of advocating for our buildings? And so I think that was one thing that I heard. How do we ensure that we have our students prepared for tomorrow from a community standpoint? Now, Whitehaven is one that they did, and I'm going to smile to say with all these changes we got going on, how do we make sure that whatever ideas that we come up with, they stay around and sustain? And so a lot of the schools that, were talked about, and they were some great ideas, even for the vacant properties. Like, we want Whitehaven, we want Westwood, we want Fairleigh. For even these vacant properties, we want it to be utilized by the community. So, I won't steal Dr. Hunter's thunder. Why don't you talk a little bit about some of the schools and exploring some of the communities, just some great ideas that you have for vacant properties, underutilized schools, and just really...
And the structure itself.
And the structure itself.
Well, I've been doing some research, across the country since we began the Whitehaven Empowerment Zone in 2016.
Okay.
And what I found is that across the country, underutilized buildings, vacant lots in different districts have been repurposed and given the opportunity to have return on their investment through subsidized housing, parental and parent wraparound services, where it's the best way to say, I guess, properties that are owned by that district can turn around and promote some type of revenue for the district to help sustain things in that particular area.
Right.
We've got to look at recreating things that we do. We've done the same thing for over 100 years in education. We've got to think out of the box. We've got to start looking at our grade bands. We got to figure out ways to attack this new third grade commitment.
Right.
Most of all, our children have to become internationally competitive. right now, we've had over $1.5 billion in scholarships in the last 10 years.
How much?
$1.5 billion.
$1.5 billion.
Whoa.
With a B.
Whoa.
That's what
Whoa.
a B. That's
with
what
a
a
billion.
B. Billion.
Yes.
And less than 10% of that been in athletics. It's been academics. But the reality of this thing is that when our children are graduating, they're not internationally competitive when they get to different levels of schooling, such as Ivy League schools, PWIs,
Right.
because when they get into those labs in those particular situations with children who've had access to those types of labs, they're not competitive because they hadn't had exposure. It doesn't mean that our children can't learn.
Right.
So
Right.
we've got to learn to be creative with funding to help generate funds to help the schools in our community. I know the superintendent has some very tough decisions to make, but I think if we think out of the box and start looking at some of our spaces and creating places to generate funding and also to help our homeless population. We have a huge homeless population, not just in the 38109 and 38116 zip codes, but I think throughout Memphis. I think if we look at restructuring some of our areas and providing a refuge for our parents and families that may be struggling a little bit in our community, they have faith in us. Right now, we've got to gain the faith of our community because many of our community members have lost faith in us as a learning community that we can educate their children.
Right.
What's happening, our best and our brightest, whatever that is, I'm talking about children that are performing at the 90th percentile and 85th percentile, earning 30s on the ACT. A lot of the private sectors are coming in and they're taking those children and inviting them to come out to their places to have a lab. And why wouldn't they? They come to a brand new lab versus a lab that we have where gas doesn't work,
Right.
water doesn't work,
Right.
do not have the latest dissecting microscopes. So
Right.
it's very enticing to those families for those children to be exposed. And remember, families and parents, they want the best for their kid.
That's right.
Everybody.
There you
Right.
go.
Right.
It doesn't matter where you live.
Right.
There you go.
You
Right.
always want the best for your child. So we've got to become competitive.
Right.
And hopefully we'll get a chance to let the superintendent's vision
Right.
come to fruition, and we can do some things differently, especially about generating funding. And especially with this subsidized housing, I think we can offer some opportunities to make us very competitive, but also generate funds so that we can turn around and give that investment back to our children.
And to your point of competitiveness, we are not competing amongst ourselves.
Right.
We are this rising tide lifts all boats.
Right.
So we're competitive. We are being competitive with all of Whitehaven. We want everybody at the table in this
Right.
because what's good for Fairley is good for Hillcrest, is good for Whitehaven and Westwood. And it is not that. And I do not want anybody to get the premonition that this is about Whitehaven High School. No, this is about Whitehaven, Westwood, Fairley,
There you go.
and the rest of the schools in that community. Because all of them, the rising tide will lift all boats.
Right.
And if we can replicate, if we can make all of those schools have focuses like Vincent has sort of put forth, it would help the entire population. And we live in Memphis. We don't just live in Whitehaven. We
Right.
just don't live in my community. I live in the whole area.
Right.
And I do know that what is good for one is good for all.
Right.
And they must see, children must see that in their schools. And they must see the growth, and they must see the desire and the want and the infrastructure. And that's what we want them to do. We want them to appreciate
Right.
and to learn and to grow in that area so that they can too. We don't have to transform our area every 10 years because they from that same area too.
Right, but to Dr. Hunter's point, like he said, we got to think outside the box. So you have a superintendent that would love to think outside the box, but you and your counterparts, the 9 board members, having her back if she doesn't do it, if she's doing something like that, that seemed like that would be something that the board would support her on, because if we can provide some kind of income generating situation for that area, it seemed like that's a win-win for everybody. Mr. Williams?
Well, I agree totally with you, but one of the biggest parables in the Bible is that your own receive you not. So I want to say this, that this young lady has been a blessing to this school district.
Yes, sir.
And wherever it goes from this point, she's given her all.
Yes,
and
sir.
she's given everything that we have needed, everything all that I have wanted, thou hast provided.
Yes,
so
sir.
I don't understand. I'm at a point now, and I'm on the board, but I don't know where we're going with it. But I do know that Toni Williams has been a blessing to this school system.
Right.
And it is my hope that if we are able to replicate, maintain the structure that she has put in place in her short tenure here,
Right.
and hopefully she won't be going very far away from us if
Right.
she leaves the district.
Right.
So I just hope that we can understand and appreciate, because these folk, these two, I retired years ago, but Vincent was my principal when I was working. I was an old teacher. He was a young principal.
Wait a minute. I didn't know this history.
Wait a minute. He dropping the gym on us right now.
I taught summer school at Whitehaven every year, all my years.
Well, wait a minute. So let me understand, Dr. Hunter. Did he obey? Did he
No.
follow?
Did he follow the rubric?
He told me I raised him.
He told me how to be a principal. He taught me how to be a principal.
During summer school.
He, Miss Strong,
That's right.
and Miss Sinclair.
That's right.
They taught me how to be a principal. They said,
Wow.
boy, you do this, you do that. And I said, yes, ma'am, yes, sir.
And it worked.
And it worked.
It worked.
Wow.
Because people stand in line to get into Whitehaven.
They sure
Teachers
do.
don't leave schools, they leave principals in most instances.
Right.
But they stand in line to get in that school because there's discipline, there's structure, there's learning. That is the only, I don't know if it's the only, but it's the only one I've been in of late. When the principal walks in the cafeteria and does this, it's silence.
Silence.
Yeah.
I bear witness.
And
And
Bear
I
witness.
thought, where that happened in 2022. But it happens at Whitehaven High School. It is safe. It's a safe environment. The infrastructure is not what we want it to be, but we're going to get there.
Right. We're going to get
But
there.
we want children to appreciate their environment, what they have at hand to learn,
Yeah.
to do it, and to be thankful, and to reproduce the same thing within their communities. We don't need this stage of violence and all of this stuff. You
Right.
don't have that to do.
All right. So as we wrap up, Superintendent, like, what does the parents or the community stand to gain from all of this talk, all of the meetings, all of the plans? What does the community stand to gain?
That's a great question. Let me say, when the Whitehaven community, the Westwood, Fairley, like you said, Hillcrest, all the schools in that community, and we just named the high schools, right? Think about the elementary and the
Right, the
middle
elementary and-
schools.
yeah, middle
you know,
schools.
what they hope and what we hope to see out of this is not just better buildings, stronger academic program, and really what I would say, some of the ideas that were discussed and with Dr. Hunter's vision, you know, just transformative ideas. I won't give them totally away, but really just thinking about some of the small environments. All parents want to bring their kids into an environment that is nurturing to
right.
their
That's
specific
right.
child's needs.
My
And
baby.
some of this man's ideas, and I'm blown away, has the research behind it. And so when we talk about what parents hope to gain, not just a building, academic programming, but a community that stands together. And then the best thing that I've heard so far is your superintendent doesn't have to go big for money. You get a district that generates money, that then generates new ideas, new academic programming, ensuring that our kids are prepared for tomorrow and the 21st century buildings prepare them for post-secondary readiness. And one thing I will credit Dr. Hunter with is just understanding the child itself, you know, not just a child. When I say this man thinks about, well, I want, before you walk in my building, to have a conversation with my kids, the business community, are you going to really give them a job? And so he's been adamant and strong in his vision to say, you know, definitely we can partner, but I want to know at the end of the day, are you going to give my kids a job when they walk out of our schools? And as a result, I'll give him credit to say he pushed our team and developed the first program, the MLG&W pipeline program. He thought of it, and he was like, well, I want to spend my CCTE money, which is our vocational money, a little bit differently. And, you know, one thing I can say is when he calls to give ideas, he just doesn't give an idea with no direction. Immediately, we follow through. Got on the phone with Doug McGowan from MLG&W, Southwest Community College, and just his ideas and his kids. And then before you know it, we got a linesman program built overnight. So when you say what does the community stand to gain, for me, it's around action and results for our kids. That's what it is. And making sure that they have what they need to be successful, which is ultimately where Memphis needs to go and stop talking about crime. We need to make sure that we invest in our kids in this school district and the talent in this school district. We got some talent.
That's beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
And the last question before I let y'all give some closing words, Mr. Williams, you know, being part of the community, you hearing all of this, from your standpoint, what's next? Because I know it's music to your ears because you said you're a retired educator, but just hearing this forward thinking and these different ideas, I know it does your heart good. But where do we go from here?
What
What's
it
next?
reminds me of is when I started teaching in 1972 in Knoxville, Tennessee. It was on the brink of segregation and integration in schools.
Wow.
And I saw a lot then. But I knew then that if we were going to save our children, it was going to be up to us. If we were going to do anything, because it was not as nice and pretty as you thought it would have been, because there were some obstacles. But today, we have no reason not to save the community of Whitehaven, Westwood, and those areas, because we have the ability, the capacity, and I would be very interested in this. This city produces police officers, training academy, the fire training academy. Why can't we have those in our building? They can come out of school and go into the academy. Come out of school, go into the fire department. Come out of school driving a bus.
Right.
If that's your vocation, we could facilitate that. We do that with nursing and those things. But certainly, I would also want to see some of these folks structured in teaching programs,
Right.
because we have such a shortage of teachers.
Right.
But we have the ability in Whitehaven to become a model for this state and this nation when it comes to saving the community.
Right.
It is worth saving. The children are worth it. The community is worth it. And it is my life ambition at this time is to save my community and to save the children and those who live in the 38116, 38109 area.
Thank you. Thank
Yep,
you.
that's
Doc Hunter, before we go to Soup for closing remarks, let's get your closing remarks before we go.
Well, Brother John, I just want to tell you, I'm just so excited and humble that, I've worked, when you get 30 years in, you kind of say what you want to say.
That's right.
And,
Yes, sir.
And I've worked for, I think, 7 or 8 superintendents. And it's been a long time since I've had a superintendent that actually listened to me.
Listen.
Listen.
Simple. That's listen.
Listen. I mean, that's one of the qualities of a leader is being able to listen. Now, you don't have to always act on what you heard.
Right.
But she's a very great listener. And she doesn't mind people working outside the box. If it shows promise, commitment, and it's going to produce results, she's all for it.
Right.
Our city is on the brink. Our elected officials have to make a very important decision very soon. I don't know what decision they're going to make. But young talent like we have in Superintendent Williams, most of our young talent is leaving Memphis.
Yes.
I see it every day.
Yes, sir.
Our
yes,
young
sir.
students come back who graduate. Fortunately, we have 30 former graduates that work on our staff at Whitehaven.
34?
30 former graduates.
Wow.
That
That's amazing.
Amazing.
That come back to teach.
Man, what you giving them incentives, man? How you doing
Incentive
that?
is. Let me
What's
tell
the
you what this is.
incentive?
They know I love them, and they know I care about them, and that goes a long way. When when people know that you value them,
Yes, sir.
they'll go 100 miles an hour for you.
That's right.
You don't have to. Everything isn't waged about how much money.
Come on.
It's about your heart.
Yes, sir.
And Superintendent Williams has a heart.
That's right.
And she has the right upbringing. She has the right culture built inside of her. And her spirit is contagious. Now, I don't know what our elected officials are going to do, but I do know this. If we don't get it right this time, we're going to lose this one. Because what's going to happen is when these grades come out of how we're doing academically across this city and across this state, we're going to have a huge reckoning. And we have to get it right this time. We finally have someone who cares about who we are. She understands who we are, but she also knows who she belongs to.
Yes,
that
sir.
makes a difference.
Big difference.
And she understands valuing people.
That's
We're
right.
going to get the education right. It's not about that. It's about the motivation that comes behind getting the education done.
Right.
She has the right motivation because she listens, she cares, and she has a stake in this community. Now, I don't know what's going to happen, Mr. Williams.
I don't either.
I don't know what's going to happen.
I do know this. We will get a superintendent.
Yeah, right.
But
right.
who
Right.
Now, this is the thing. This is the parable of the Bible. You came into your own and they received you not.
Right.
It's always somebody somewhere else from afar who you think gonna come and save you. It's not gonna happen.
Uh-oh.
Now, we've had them from afar. I was in this school system when E.C. Stimpert was the superintendent.
Who was this?
E.C. Stimpert. He was
E.C. Stimpert.
He was the superintendent back when it was segregation, when we went black schools and white schools.
You see, I learned
So I've
from all
seen
the
a
time.
whole lot of them come and go.
Yes,
but I
sir.
do know that if you don't save yourself, you won't be saved.
Yes, man.
And ain't no
Yes, sir.
need of you going out looking for all across the country, yonder. Why would they have an interest in saving Memphis? Who has they don't have a vested interest for sure. They may be passionate about what education and doing things, but programs and passion and what you're carrying and your investments, what you've done, speaks louder
That's right.
than your credentials. I don't care how many PhDs you have. Who have you helped and who will you help in this city?
Yes, sir. I mean, now, Soup, now, you done heard two powerhouses.
The whole Bible, right? I got some Bible verses today.
Woo!
And then with Dr. Hunter, I am looking. You see this beautiful relationship here, but
Yes,
I have
yes.
to tell you, sometimes it don't always look so pretty behind the scenes because this man here, he will challenge you, but he has a heart for students and his community and kids. So definitely, I appreciate that. It definitely, just doing the work. Sometimes you get into being a robot. You take the hits. You don't always feel human. You feel like you got to stand on top of this system and make sure that at no point we fall or fail, because it's a community that needs the support, our students that need it. So just being human in this moment, I will take a moment to say thank you, and definitely as well appreciated to see it, and it makes me go harder each and every day for this community that I love. I'm a product of it.
Right.
Unfortunately, I sat in that geography class. I'm still mad about them
Still
grades
about the mistake.
to this
It's still
day.
bothering you right now.
But you earned it. Mr. Williams.
Look, here you go.
But what I will say, it's a beautiful thing when you can walk down the halls you once walked down.
That's right.
And then the teachers who have now become principals, they hold you accountable.
Right.
It's in the family heart. But what I will close on is that this is a one opportunity in time for this infrastructure plan. Think about, we just had a news break around our budget planning, some of the fiscal challenges with this federal money leaving. Like Mr. Williams say, who's going to save us? We got to figure it out for ourselves. And right
that
now,
money is going.
That money is going. And this is the perfect opportunity for the community to come alongside the school district and each and every subcommittee to say, what do you want to see, so that we can make sure that we invest in what's the right thing for our kids. That's the goal here. And look, I got some strong men beside me today to make sure it happens.
That's it right there, ladies and gentlemen. Well, look, that wraps our latest episode of Tea with Superintendent Toni Williams. Thank you, gentlemen. You two are two of the most important black men in our district.
That's right.
That speaks not just with authority, but experience. And you're not afraid. Yeah, Mr. Williams, they used to say, man, you got to watch, keep. Now I see why you got to watch him. Because he's speaking from a good place. Yeah. Well, he's been there. He's seen it.
He is one elected official, I will say, he's going to stand on principle. Definitely he speaks the truth of what he believes in. I definitely appreciate that.
Right. So, I just want to give him props. Thank you for bringing this one. Because when I saw these two joining the superintendent tonight, I said, oh, man, this on the pop. This the one right here. But thank y'all. And look, have a happy holiday over the break. And we appreciate y'all coming in. Hope to have y'all back. All right? All right, ladies and gentlemen, getting back to the music. Coming up at 6 o'clock, we will have our brother talking about Huddle Talk with Dr. Hutch, talking about community issues in our city. Y'all keep it locked. We are 88.5 FM.
I work in the seed department. I would like to take